Hello everybody and welcome back to F1 23 with me, Dan, and the Slothz team as we're preparing to get underway for the Italian Grand Prix at Monza in today's race. A quick jump through the calendar to a season break, and then we're immediately met with another series of things that we can do. We've got a department event coming up for the reliability department, and we're going to go with the department lead here, and hopefully that will bear some fruit later on. Not that we're doing too much in the way of durability anyway. Carrying on through the calendar then, and gathering up more resource points and more upgrades there. We had one for the chassis, another one for the power unit. We're going to try and pick up this weight redistribution upgrade for the energy store positioning, and then straight over to practice for Monza. Now, exciting times if you are going to stick around to the end of this week. On Thursday, we've got my first attempt at doing a race around the Qatar Grand Prix at the Sale, and it goes pretty well, so don't forget to stick around for that one. That'll be out on Thursday. Anyway, we'll continue on through practice here in Monza, gathering up all of these resource points and upgrades. Having thought about it, I'm probably going to limit myself to Spec 2 only until I've maxed out everything at Spec 2, just so I'm not ridiculously overpowered, because even with what I think about the 5th best car at the moment and new components, we're still ridiculously fast and unbeatable even on 100 difficulty. And when you're trying to make a series on YouTube about it and you're winning nearly every race or coming close, it gets a bit boring after a while, so we want to spice things up, much like the game is trying to spice things up by failing us here. And talking of spicing things up then, it's over to the Italian Grand Prix, and the heavens have opened again this season here in Monza, and we'll have to enjoy yet another race in the soaking wet, only this time we're committing to the full wets out there from the start. Now that could get very spicy indeed, and you just have to stick around to find out what goes on. Not the most difficult circuit to try and drive around on in the wet, although if you're like me and you like to stick on a dry setup, then things can get a little more challenging. Anyway, don't forget to like this video, hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell as well, and we will get underway with the starting grid order for today's race here in Monza. And on the front row, we have Charles Leclerc alongside his rival Max Verstappen. How the two of them consistently start at the front, I have no idea. Behind them, we have Carlos Sainz and Sergio Perez, Lewis Hamilton and Lando Norris, George Russell and Lance Stroll, Alex Albon, and then we're in P10. Fernando Alonso and Oscar Piastri, Esteban Ocon and Jack Doohan, Joe Guan Yu and Kevin Magnussen, Valtteri Bottas, Yuki Tsunoda, Logan Sargent, Nico Hulkenberg, and finally it's Nick De Vries and Pierre Gasly who picks up a penalty, meaning that he will be starting from the back in this Grand Prix. Reliability, of course, not exactly helping out the majority of the teams as we go through the season and they begin to start wearing out all of their components. All the more better for us, I suppose. We are second in the championship by complete accident, and I'll be doing everything that I can not to win it, if that's what it comes down to in the end. I'm hoping that by the end of this season, Max Verstappen can extend his lead so that even if a fluke win happens, we don't take the title by mistake. Right then, it's time to get underway here in Monza in the soaking wet rain, and we're about midway down the field. There we are on the left-hand side, just queued up behind Fernando Alonso, and we have an absolutely god-awful start here. Alonso getting the jump on us there, and coming under attack from literally everyone behind us. Coming down into turn 1, everyone's slowing right down here for the first of the chicanes, and I'm seeing debris on the circuit. There's another piece going flying off there. Have we had some incidents already as we get squeezed onto the grass by Lance Stroll and try and form in behind him? See if we can get past the Aston Martin here early on. We're not going too hard just at the moment. No overtake on at the moment, but we slip up the inside, bash wheels with the Aston Martin and somehow manage to stick it around the outside there. and continue on in P8. So a couple of positions made up already, but as the Grand Prix progresses, you can see it's already getting quite wet.
So the rain's easing off a bit, but the track is still going to be wet for a while. Be careful.
Rain is easing off then, but the difficulty is not. This was on board Charles Leclerc into turn 1 then. And oh, there's an issue there. Max Verstappen runs wide into the Ferrari. Not much that Charles Leclerc could do there, to be quite honest with you. This was Sergio Perez watching a different angle, also hitting Max Verstappen, which may explain why he ended up running wide into turn 1. Sergio Perez clearly deciding that he wants to wipe out his 2 rivals there and take the trophy himself. But as we continue on, already by the end of lap 1, you can see that there's an enormous lead that the front 7 have managed to pull over us, with the exception of Charles Leclerc and Sergio Perez, who have both decided to come into the pit lane, promoted us up to 6th, but how long that will last remains unseen. As Lance Stroll now begins the challenge, we've got a big queue of cars behind us, all trying to fight their way through the field right now. As Stroll goes around the outside of us into turn 1, into turn 2 we go. We're taking the outside line and just about hang on to that one by straightening up as soon as possible. But that could easily have gone in a very nasty direction, especially with all of those cars that are currently waiting behind us. And here we are on board on lap 2. Stroll is still closing in. Our power unit's not looking the best. You can see the orange light there as we lock the rears on the entry to Ascari there and nearly throw the car into a complete spin. Lance Stroll immediately capitalising, and by the time we get back on the track, we have no grip to defend. And we're going to have to try and defend from Alex Albon now as he tries to get past us up the inside. He's looking. Also, Esteban Ocon there. Alex Albon, can he do it? He's hanging in there. We actually get spooked and run wide or lose the rear. It could have been either of the two, but Alex Albon up into P7 now. And now we're chased down by Fernando Alonso. Albon, of course, picked up a podium a couple of races ago in Britain. And now Alonso sneaking up the inside. We're going to close that one off before he even has a chance to think about it. And although he goes for a cutback there, we're just going to try and pull away. More confirmation there of the rain apparently easing at some stage in the near future, but nothing just yet. Lap 3 then, on to lap 4, and Fernando Alonso is as impatient as ever trying to get past us. It's a drag race of the green cars down towards turn 1. We're nudging him a little bit there, not quite giving him enough space as we power slide into the side of the Aston Martin. An interesting defensive technique, but it apparently has worked, and also Esteban Ocon will be thanking us for that as he managed to make his way through as well. This is on board with Alonso actually using his ERS. Yeah, there we go, squeezing him over. Wasn't really sure that he was there, and Alonso puts his hand up in frustration, and then we slide into the side of him just to get revenge. Also being clipped there by Ocon, who apparently has the spatial awareness of a teaspoon. Coming around then on the end of lap 4 onto lap 5, and now it's Esteban Ocon who fancies his chances of getting past us. We're going to drag race down towards turn 1, using a bit of the ERS here, but trying to save it a little bit for later because we haven't really upgraded it at all yet. And Ocon quite easily passed us into turn 1 there. Alonso may have picked up some damage potentially, is slipping back down the order as well. This is Jack Doohan, our teammate, going up the inside of Alonso as well, who makes a mistake into the Parabolica. And now Doohan's just one place away for the points. But not for long, though, because he's pulling into the pit lane. I'm not seeing damage on the car, so we'll have to see what this is all about. Down the pit lane he goes, and into our pit box. A hideous shade of purple there. And it's intermediates going on to our teammate's car. Jack Doohan becomes the first driver to risk it all with the Inters So, naturally, coming around at the end of lap 6, we're still being chased down by Oscar Piastri. We're somehow still in the points. Esteban Ocon is miles ahead right now in a fight with Albon and Stroll. And we're going to peel off into the pit lane, nearly twatting into the barriers as we slam on the brakes and the AI takes over down the pit lane. Into the pit box we go. We will be sticking on the intermediate tyres here, following our example, the example led by our teammate. Or are we? Because Jack Doohan has come back into the pit lane. Has he crashed into the wall somewhere and needs a bit of damage repairing? No, it doesn't look like it. And he's going to come in now. And he goes back onto the wet tyres. Have we just made the worst strategy call in Formula 1 history? Has our teammate just single-handedly ruined our race with psychological warfare? We see George Russell coming through turn 1, and he goes into the gravel backwards, manages to keep it out the barriers, with no damage by the looks of things. But in natural Formula 1 AI passion, he's just sticking on the circuit, not moving at all. And naturally, the safety car has come out. Probably much to the delight of Jack Doohan, who is 26 seconds behind us, and we ourselves are, well, apparently 26 seconds behind Russell, but you can see him right there, nearly getting ourselves a penalty there, and having to stop on track to fix that delta. Jack Doohan again is back into the pit lane. Clearly has made up his mind that he wants to go back onto the intermediate tyres, and quite honestly, this was deserved. If he's messed around like this, he could have been leading this race after this safety car had he not done that. We've not had many other cars come in. Everyone behind us bar Norris, well, of course, and Russell, who's disqualified, have come in. So Ocon, Bottas, Tsunoda and Magnussen all came in for Inters. Doohan is now back on Inters, but some way behind. I just see Alex Albon and Sargent have just been promoted up to 3rd and 5th in the Williams as more cars peel off into the pit lane for intermediates. And we're chased down by Lando Norris into turn 1. We got yellow flags still, bumping into the back of the Ferrari as we've got no grip whatsoever still. We are running a dry setup because I just like to live dangerously. And unfortunately, that does mean we'll have to run on the water a little bit to try and cool down the tyres because they are not doing well. We'll see that later on. Up the inside of Charles Leclerc. We lose the rear end there. Nearly crash into our old friend Sergio Perez. And for the second time this season, we find ourselves being showered with pieces of Ferrari front wing. We pick up a penalty, which is probably well and truly deserved, and that is not good for us. We've got the safety car out. This is Charles Leclerc, a passenger, unfortunately, who also has an inability to see what's happening in front of him. So as the safety car returns to the pit lane for the second time, and Jack Doohan has managed to catch back up to literally everyone else, although he is right at the back of the field. Away we go here in Monza for the 3rd time. And we're going to be trying to take that position back from Lando Norris, who took away P8 whilst we were stranded on the grass alongside Charles Leclerc. We're also going to go up the inside of Sergio Perez. Everyone running in the top 6 and Perez are all running wet, and apparently they think that's going to be fine to get to the end. They probably would have been had we not had that second safety car come out. And according to the engineer, there's debris on track. There is. Pierre Gasly is stopped at the side of the circuit as we try and find our way past Fernando Alonso, who seems to be struggling quite a lot there. And that is the difference that the intermediates are making right now as the virtual safety car comes out, so that the marshals can figure out how to get Pierre Gasly off of the circuit. This was him up the inside of Piastri, following Sainz, I believe. And on corner exit, presumably, yep, just loses power and will pull off to the side of the track. There is a crane there, so I'm not sure why we need the virtual safety car. For that, I would imagine that they could just back the car onto the concrete anyway. But That's what they've decided to do. And so it's green flags here once again in Monza. We're being chased down once again by Fernando Alonso, although he will not be sticking behind us for too much longer. Incredibly, Jack Doohan has managed to make an overtake on Pierre Gasly, who of course is retired, and George Russell, who was disqualified for parking on the gravel. And now the chaos ensues behind us as Fernando Alonso on the wet tyre clogs up the entire field. Everyone behind him, he wants to get through on their enters. You can see the heat map there. The core tyre temperatures right now nearly 100 degrees each, as we try and find some water to cool them down. I think that might be the tyre pressure setup from the dry car setup on there that's causing that. And you can see it's having a bit of an issue with the tyre wear as well, as we try to go up the inside of Sargent here. But Esteban Ocon takes advantage and goes around the outside of the pair of us as we go slipping and sliding around. Logan Sargent can't believe it. He's running in the top 10 for quite possibly the first time in his life right now, and it's slipping away from him every second. We're going to go and try and go around the outside of Esteban Ocon here. There's action up ahead. Stroll versus Albon. We run wide, nearly off the circuit there. I think that's technically still on there. We bump wheels with Ocon, and somehow we managed to get away with that, with the FIA turning a blind eye to every incident going on track right now. And we retain P5 for now, though, because we do have that penalty. This was Logan Sargent panicking beyond belief there. As we steer our way past him, Ocon and myself taking an interesting line through the corner. Try and get round. This was Ocon's perspective. And as Senna once said, if you don't go for a gap, you are no longer a racing driver. And Esteban Ocon is just proving to everyone what he is. As we lose the rear end behind Alex Albon, either a touch of the grass or just locking the rear axle there, as we come through Lesmo 2 as well, sliding all over the place, trying to find some cool water for the tyres, because they are really struggling right now. We're going to go to the inside of Albon through Ascari. He's going to challenge it here as we go side by side, but he doesn't have the grip anymore on the wet tyres. They must be overheating. And not to mention the fact they've run them for the entire race, so they will be really worn out by now. And we've already caught up to Stroll, also conscious of the fact that behind us, Ocon is still there, looking up the inside, and also Bottas has managed to fought his way through the field. There's also, looking at the minimap, the Ferrari of Carlos Sainz rapidly approaching as well. As we go for a different move around Lance Stroll, but still in Ascari, we're going to go around the outside. Did touch off of the track there, but even so, Lance Stroll was so slow through the corner, it made literally no difference whatsoever to him. The question is, can we pull out a 5-second lead? Who knows? We're watching Stroll now defending one of the last people in the field to be running the wet tyre, and those are all the drivers on intermediates behind him. Bottas goes to the right-hand side, Ocon to the left. Carlos Sainz is waiting for one of them to hit each other and then take advantage of the situation. What can Stroll do here? He tucks it behind Ocon, covers Sainz. Bottas goes up the inside, round the outside, and that's 2 positions lost for Stroll again, pushing him down to P6. Well and truly off the podium. Looks like Carlos Sainz was also going to have a look there as well. As we watch the move, he's sliding all over the place there. Has absolutely nothing he can get when we force him over that raised curb, further destabilising his car. As we come round the final corner of lap 18, it's final lap time here in Monza. We're on the podium for now, but Esteban Ocon is closing in quickly. So is Bottas and Sainz. We're going to try and get past Hamilton and hope that he can hold them up for as long as possible. Round the outside we go, down the inside. Small bit of contact there, but I'm sure he doesn't mind. As we come out of turn 2 and around the outside of the Mercedes, and that is all we can do now. Verstappen is just too far ahead to try and challenge him. It's a case of keeping the tyres cold and watching to see what Esteban Ocon can do. Carlos Sainz has got past Valtteri Bottas as well. You can see him climbing up to 5th there in the leaderboard. Stroll drops out the points. Albon out the points. Alonso out the points. Dropping down another position, Alonso behind Oscar Piastri. Jack Doohan's actually managed to make his way back up to P14 as we see Esteban Ocon also gets past Lewis Hamilton, demoted him off the podium, and Carlos Sainz is also going for it as well. Carlos Sainz is going to go for it now. The win is a little bit too far out of reach, but this is a podium position for the pair of them. All they've got to do is not crash and give a position away to Hamilton, who's been overtaken by Valtteri Bottas as we speak. Coming down towards the final corner then. We're not going to cross the line ahead of Verstappen, but Ocon screws up and he lets Carlos Sainz up the inside as we come round towards the finish line. There's Verstappen. He was just too far ahead of us, and Carlos Sainz picks up a surprise P2. Taking it away from his teammate who started on the front row. Esteban Ocon, still a commendable podium there, picks up P3 after that race. And what an interesting one that was, as the rain magically stops once again, even though it is very much still raining. Esteban Ocon, a man who takes advantage at every opportunity that he can, takes another podium. I believe there was another one a few times in F1 22 as well. So clearly the Alpine and Esteban Ocon are two to watch in future, just in case they get any bright ideas at Alpine. With that out of the way then, it's time for the race results. And here we are with the final results, and Carlos Sainz actually picked up the fastest lap in P2, several seconds faster than Max Verstappen, who picks up the win, and they are both followed by Esteban Ocon. Behind them, Lewis Hamilton, Valtteri Bottas, Radiant Slothz recovered to 6th after the penalty, Lando Norris, Yuki Tsunoda, Joe Guan Yu, and Kevin Magnussen. So over to the Drivers' Championship, and Carlos Sainz takes P2 away from us and now sits behind Max Verstappen in first. We're just 1 point behind in third. Behind us then we have Charles Leclerc, Sergio Perez, Lewis Hamilton, George Russell, Fernando Alonso, Esteban Ocon, and Lando Norris. Further down the order we have Alex Albon, Pierre Gasly, Valtteri Bottas, Yuki Tsunoda, Lance Stroll, Oscar Piastri, Nico Hülkenberg, Joe Guan Yu, and Kevin Magnussen make up the point scorers, followed by Nick de Vries, Jack Doohan, and Logan Sargent. And over to the Constructors' Championship, it's Red Bull at the top ahead of Ferrari and Mercedes. Still, we sit in a pretty lonely 4th place. We're followed by Aston Martin, Alpine, McLaren, Alfa Romeo, Williams, AlphaTauri, and Haas. And that's all for this race. We'll catch you next time for Qatar.